Right now, one of the smallest countries on earth is having the biggest economic moment in its history. It's more money, more attention, and more tourists than anything this nation has ever seen. And it all happened because 11 guys reached the knockout stage of the FIFA World Cup. To some people, this is just a feel-good sports story. A tiny underdog has its moment, the confetti gets swept up, and in 6 months, the world moves on and nothing actually changes. But to others, this is the single largest economic event in this country's 50-year history. A once-in-a-generation transfer of money and attention that could permanently rewire a $3 billion economy. That's the side I'm on. And by the end of this video, I'm fairly confident you'll be on this side too. Because here's the thing, the money is already real. I'm going to show you the receipts, the check, the bookings, the hotels being built right now. That part isn't a prediction, that part already happened. But there's one question sitting underneath all of it. The question that decides whether this becomes a national transformation or the world's most expensive highlight reel, when the biggest free advertising campaign in your country's history points a fire hose of money at your economy, how much of it can you actually keep? Hold that question. We're going to circle it this entire video, and then we're going to answer it. First, you need to understand what kind of economy we're dealing with, because Cape Verde was a strange economy before football got involved. Cape Verde consists of 10 volcanic islands sitting in the Atlantic, about 400 miles off the coast of West Africa. Population, roughly 525,000 people. Fewer people than the city of Nashville. The entire economy, from every hotel, every fishing boat, every overpriced airport sandwich, adds up to around $3 billion a year. For context, Apple makes that in about 3 days. This is a country that could fit, financially speaking, inside a rounding error on Microsoft's balance sheet. And this economy stands on exactly 2 legs. Leg number 1 is tourism. Tourism directly drives about a quarter of Cape Verde's GDP. And once you count the knock-on effects, the taxis, the restaurants, the guys selling questionable sunglasses on the beach, it touches nearly 40% of all economic activity. Last year, about 1.25 million tourists visited. That's more than 2 tourists for every single resident. Leg number 2 is weirder. Leg number 2 is people who left. Cape Verde has one of the highest emigration rates on the planet. The diaspora, Cape Verdeans living in Portugal, France, the Netherlands, the United States, is estimated to be larger than the population of the actual country. Locals call it the 11th island, an entire invisible island made of cousins. And that 11th island sends money home. A lot of money. Remittances run at roughly 12 to 15% of GDP. More than foreign aid, more than foreign investment. Cape Verde imports about 3/4 of its food and runs a permanent trade deficit. And the thing holding the whole show together is, essentially, your auntie in Lisbon hitting send on a bank transfer. So that's the setup. An economy that runs on sunshine and homesickness. Remember both, because the football story is about to collide with both of them at full speed. October 13th, 2025. Cape Verde plays Eswatini in the capital, Praia, needing a win to reach the World Cup for the first time in history. The government declares a half-day public holiday so people can watch, which is objectively the most romantic thing a finance ministry has ever done. They win 3-0, they top their qualifying group ahead of Cameroon, a country with 60 times their population and an actual football industry. Cape Verde becomes the smallest country by land area ever to qualify for a World Cup. Now, quick word about this squad, because economically, it's hilarious. Almost nobody on this team plays their club football in Cape Verde. They're scattered across lower league clubs in Turkey, the United States, Ireland, Hungary, Portugal. One defender was reportedly recruited through a LinkedIn message. Side note, somewhere out there is a scout whose entire career highlight is a cold DM that said, "Hi, I hope this message finds you well. Would you like to play in a World Cup?" Anyways, here's the detail that matters. That squad is the 11th island. The same diaspora that props up the economy with remittances is the diaspora that built the team. The country's biggest export, its own people, came home wearing blue shirts. Then the tournament starts, and Cape Verde decides it does not fancy being anyone's warm-up match. 0-0 against Spain. 2-2 against Uruguay, 0-0 against Saudi Arabia, undefeated in the group, the smallest nation ever to reach the knockout stage of a World Cup. And then, in the round of 32, Argentina, Messi, the world champions. Cape Verde comes from behind twice, drags them to extra time, and loses 3-2 in what people are calling the match of the tournament. Their goalkeeper, a man named Verde, spends 2 hours repeatedly telling the greatest footballer of all time. No, they went home without the trophy, but they did not go home empty-handed. And this is where the sports story ends and the economics begins. Let's start with the direct money because it's the easiest to count. FIFA paid out $871 million in prize money at this World Cup, nearly double the previous one. And Cape Verde's run to the round of 32 earned them roughly $13.5 million. $11 million for the knockout stage, plus a $2.5 million preparation grant. And if you count every participation payment, the total climbs toward $21 million. Now, $13.5 million. If you're the United States, that's a rounding error. That's the office coffee budget. If you're Cape Verde, that is nearly 0.5% of your entire GDP from 1 month of football. And because percentages are hard to feel, let me translate. If the United States earned the same share of ITS economy from a football tournament, the check would be worth over $100 billion. Same trophy. Very different bank statements. One more layer. The Cape Verdean Football Federation's entire annual budget before this was a fraction of that 11 million. This is a Sunday league club finding a winning lottery ticket inside a bib. There is now a genuine national debate about what to do with it. Build pitches and academies at home, or double down on the LinkedIn scouting diaspora machine that just took the world champions to extra time. We'll come back to that. But honestly, the check is the small story. The big story is what happened to everyone's search bar. The moment Cape Verde held Spain, roughly 500 million people opened Google Maps at the same time and said the same 3 words. Wait, where is that? Economists call what happened next the World Cup effect, and the numbers are genuinely stupid. Holiday searches for Cape Verde from the United States up more than 5,000% year on year. Expedia reported American searches up over 800%, China up over 850%, the UK up 260%, Japan up 110%. Now, I know what you're thinking. Searches are window shopping. People Google things they'll never buy. I search for beach houses in Portugal every time my boss schedules a meeting that could have been an email. So here's the number that actually matters. Flight bookings. Real money has left the account bookings to Cape Verde. Up 76% year on year. That's not curiosity anymore. That's credit cards. And the industry is already moving. TUI, one of the biggest tour operators in Europe, watched its Cape Verde searches double and is now lining up new flight routes and a brand new hotel on the island of Boa Vista. The country's airports are being expanded under a 40-year concession. When hotel chains start pouring concrete, that is no longer a trend. That's an economy changing in real time. Even the people became assets. Verde, the goalkeeper who personally ruined Messi's evening, went from 500,000 Instagram followers to over 17 million in 3 weeks. And because nothing in the modern economy stays local, his boots weren't made by Nike or Adidas. They were made by a small Chinese manufacturer that promptly got buried under a mountain of orders. One man's reflexes in a stadium in America created overtime shifts in a shoe factory in China. That's globalization in a single image. So let's take stock. $13.5 million in the bank, bookings up 76%, new flights, new hotels, 17 million new followers. By the way, quick pause. Statistically, most of the people watching this aren't subscribed, which means the algorithm thinks you're window shopping too. If you want to prove it wrong, the button's right there. Anyways, the change is real. It's countable. It's already happening. So why isn't this the end of the video? Because there's one number left. It's the most important number in this entire story. And it's the reason the celebration needs an asterisk. That number is 41 euros. Here's the awkward part. Picture Cape Verde's tourism economy as a bucket. The World Cup just aimed a fire hose at that bucket, and the fire hose is on right now at full pressure. The problem is that the bucket has 3 holes. Hole number 1, everyone comes from the same place. Over 70% of Cape Verde's tourists come from just 7 European countries. Meanwhile, the Americans doing all that frantic 5,000% Googling, last year they made up about 1% of hotel guests, The new demand is coming from markets the industry has barely ever served. That's like a restaurant going viral in a country it doesn't deliver to. Hole number 2. Everyone goes to the same place. Around 80% of all tourist stays happen on just 2 of the 9 inhabited islands, Sal and Boa Vista. The other 7 islands are watching the boom through the window. And hole number 3, the big one, the money doesn't stick. Cape Verde's tourism runs on all-inclusive resorts, many of them foreign-owned. You fly in, you get a wristband, and everything you eat, drink, and do is prepaid into a system that routes a big chunk of the profit straight back overseas. The average tourist in Cape Verde spends about 41 euros a day in the local economy. In the Canary Islands, a comparable beach destination a couple hours north, that figure is about 238. Nearly 6 times more per tourist, per day. So a tourist lands, the arrivals number goes up, the headline looks amazing, and the island keeps 41 euros. The wristband giveth, and the wristband keepeth. This is why the question from the start of this video is the only question that matters. Not, is the money coming? It's coming. We've seen the receipts. The question is how much of it Cape Verde gets to keep. And the good news is we don't have to guess, because World Cup economics has a pattern, and we've seen it play out over and over. First, the cautionary tales. Hosting a World Cup is famously one of the worst investments in economics. South Africa spent billions on stadiums that now sit mostly empty. Brazil built a World Cup stadium in a city so remote it now gets used for weddings and a car park. Hosting means you pay for the party, but Cape Verde didn't host. Cape Verde qualified. And qualifying is the opposite trade. You pay almost nothing, and you get the global attention for free. It might be the single best return on investment available to a small country. 11 guys, 1 qualifying campaign, and suddenly you're prime time in every living room on Earth. And we know the upside is real because 2 countries just ran this exact playbook. Croatia reached a World Cup final and converted it into years of record tourism. Morocco reached a semi-final and turned the attention into a multi-year visitor boom. New routes, new investment, sustained growth, small country, giant football moment, permanent economic step change. It can be done. The pattern from both is almost boringly consistent. Keep marketing after the confetti drops. Open flight routes while the world is still curious. And most importantly, give visitors reasons to spend money outside the wristband. Cape Verde is, to its credit, already reading from that script. There's a $75 million World Bank program aimed at spreading tourism beyond the 2 resort islands. A government 5-year plan, airport expansion, even a direct flight from Rhode Island because of that 11th island again. The diaspora that used to just send money home is now a marketing department with matching passports. The holes in the bucket are real. But so is the repair crew. So let's go back to the beginning. At the start of this video, I asked you a question. When the biggest free advertising campaign in your country's history points a fire hose at your economy, how much can you actually keep? We've spent this whole video circling it. Now we can answer it. Cape Verde keeps the check, $13.5 million, nearly 0.5% of GDP already in the account. It keeps the bookings up 76%, already flying. It keeps the new routes, the new hotel, the World Bank money, and a global brand it could never have afforded to buy. Conservatively, the most valuable month in the country's economic history. What it keeps beyond that comes down to the bucket. Whether 41 euros a day becomes 80. Whether tourists ever see the other 7 islands. Whether the boom outlives the highlight reel. And I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you how that part ends. I don't have a magic crystal ball that says whether Cape Verde becomes the next Canary Islands or just has one incredible summer. Nobody does. And anyone who stares into a camera and hands you a confident forecast about a 500,000 person island economy is guessing with better lighting. But here's what I can tell you. For 50 years, this country's most valuable export was its own people, leaving, working abroad, sending money home to hold the economy together. And then one October afternoon, that export came home, put on a blue shirt, held the best teams on the planet, and handed their country the one thing small economies almost never get. A turn with the fire hose. The money is real. The moment is real. Now they just have to fix the bucket before the water stops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.